Chair, the meeting is now live.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr, Carol.
Chair, there's a note from Elwyn. He can't hear you.
Say that again, sorry. Say that again.
There's a chat saying Elwyn can't hear
I
you.
do apologise. Can I be heard now? Shall I say that again? Sorry all, my mic wasn't on, schoolboy error. Just like to welcome everyone here this morning to this first meeting for a couple of weeks. And in particular, I'd like to welcome Councillor Fleer to what is her first meeting on this committee and hope that she enjoys her time. So apologies for that error, and we'll move swiftly on to item number 1. Please, Carol, apologies and roll call.
So thank you, Chair. So Councillor Gareth D. Jones. Apologies from Councillor Adrian Jones and Councillor Tom Colbert. Councillor Angela Davis. Councillor Deb Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Fleur France Morgan.
Present.
Councillor Peter James has sent apologies. Councillor Ed Jones.
Present.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
Present.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
Present.
Councillor Carl Lewis. We've not had any response from him. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Present.
Councillor Edwin Roderick. Apologies have been received from Councillor David Selby. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
Yma.
Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson has sent apologies. Councillor Hugh Williams.
Yma.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Carol. Good. Item number 2 this morning, minutes of the previous meeting. They're located on pages 3 to 8 of our pack, and I'm looking for a proposer, please, and a seconder for accuracy. Thank you, Councillor Hugh. Thank you, Councillor Ed. I take it there's nothing from it to be discussed. So, planning, number 3, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest from members relating to items to be considered on the agenda. No. To receive members' requests that a record be made of their membership of town or community councils where discussion has taken place of matters for the consideration of this committee. No. And to receive declarations from members of the committee that they will be acting as a local representative in respect of an individual application being considered by the committee. Councillor Hugh was welcome there.
Chair, can I declare that interest in application 25/0980/full, the St John's Ambulance station in Estraganais.
Diolch.
And I wish to act as a local representative.
Thank you, duly noted. Thank you. And finally, to note the details of members of the County Council who are not members of the committee who will be acting as a local representative in respect of an individual application being considered by the committee. I don't believe we have any. So, with everyone happy, we'll push on item 4, planning applications for consideration. To consider the reports from the updates. I don't believe there's any updates, Gemma, Carol, so we haven't done any of them. So first before us today, 4.2, we have the former St John's ambulance offices, and I understand that we have a number of speakers. We have Councillor Hugh speaking as a local member. Then we have Stephanie Connick, Nicola Griffiths. Unfortunately, the agent can't be with us, but he has forwarded a statement which, with members' consent, we will be reading. Rachel will read out if everyone is happy, and I can see nodding heads, so we will do that. So the officer taking us through this is Richard, I believe. So Richard, if you'd be so kind as to take us through this, up through to your recommendation.
Chair, I just need to bring in the 2 speakers.
Now.
Yeah, that'd be easier.
If you just pause, thank you.
So I'm bringing in Nicola Griffiths into the meeting. and then I'll bring in Stephanie Connick. So Stephanie, can you confirm that you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can hear you clear.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. And then Nicola. Don't see this.
Is Nicola with us? Just bear with us a couple, please, members and people at home. We're just trying to bring in one of the speakers who's joining us on Zoom.
Good morning, Nicola. Can you confirm you can hear us in the chamber? Good morning, Nicola.
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you. Apologies for the technical issue there.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol, and welcome to the two speakers. Glad to have you. And Richard, floor's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. So before us this morning, we have a change of use application for offices to provide 3 residential units. The offices were the former St John's ambulance offices in Ystrad-Gunlais. The first slide indicates the application site within the settlement of the town of Ystrad-Gunlais. Here's a more zoomed up picture. The site is located off Derwent Road, which is accessed off Brecon Road within Ystrad-Gunlais. Here is a location plan and the block plan of the existing site. As you can see, the existing offices are in a built-up residential area with residential properties off Derwent Road and then to the rear of Bryn Owl Road. Here is a photograph of the existing sites. On the right hand of the photo, you can see the former St John ambulance offices. It's a single-story dormer-style office building. The properties to the left on the photo are positioned at a higher elevation. Here you can see another elevation of the property. This is the west elevation. This is viewed from the private access track, which does not form part of the plan and application. Here's another picture of the front elevation of the property. This difficult angle to get, but it's the east elevation of the existing property. This kind of indicates it's overgrown and the building has fallen into a state of disrepair. Here's another photo demonstrating it's been overgrown. This is the western elevation of the property. This is to the rear. This is accessed on the private track. So this is kind of facing towards Bryn Owl Road. You've got residential properties to the rear of it as well. As mentioned, the private track isn't part of this application. Access to the rear will be gained within the site. And again, just another photo of the rear of the property. Here is an existing block plan of the office building, showing its existing layout within its site. And here's another image of the site plot plan. As you've seen from the photos, here a demonstration of the existing elevations of the site. Okay, so as mentioned, the application site is located within the town and settlement of Ustragunlais. It's in a built-up residential area. The application is proposing the change of use of existing offices B1 to 3 residential units. The works proposed to the buildings, is minimal. It's relation to a change of fenestration, window openings, and the provision of roof lights. There are also boundary treatments to the curtilage, more so in the creation of the garden areas to the rear of the property. Here's a proposed site plan indicating the proposed works. It is predominantly internal alterations to accommodate the change of use. Access will be to the front of the property of Derwin Road, as the existing use of B1 also accessed the site. In regards to a principle of development, policy H1 of the Powys Local Development Plan does support housing, especially within a town such as Ustragunlais. The creation of 3 residential units at this site is therefore deemed to be acceptable in accordance with policy H1 of the Local Development Plan. Consideration has also been given to the loss of the B1 use of the site. The site has been unoccupied for a period of time. It's fallen into a state of disrepair, and it is considered as alternative provision within the area of Ustragunlais. Given consideration to the principle of development, officers are supportive of it in respect of policy H1 of the Local Development Plan. As mentioned, the design, there is minimal changes, predominantly internal to accommodate the change of use. There is changes to the external fenestration of the property, the window openings and the roof light. These are minimal and they don't really create any adverse impact on amenity through their provision. They do make use of predominantly the existing openings at the property. The building has fallen into a state of disrepair. Considering its change of use, it's considered that it'll provide an uplift to the property and to benefit of the wider area. In respect of highways, access and parking, the existing parking arrangements to the site, you can see on the photo, they're provided off Derwin Road. To the front, there is existing parking spaces for 4 vehicles, which, given the change of use from B1 to the residential use, the B1 would have required 4 parking spaces, and the change of use to 3 residential units would also require 4 parking spaces to be provided. Therefore, there's no material change in the parking provision at the site in relation to the change of use. The private road running off Derwin Road to the rear of for 23 and 22, they do not provide, that is not part of this application, and any issues in respect of that would be a civil matter in respect of the parties involved. Highways have been consulted, and they have raised no objection in respect of parking and access arrangements to the site. In respect of residential amenity, as mentioned, there's existing building in a built-up residential area. The proposed change of use isn't considered to cause any adverse impact on neighbouring amenity. The existing building is offset in excess of 21 metres from the front to the front of adjacent properties. I think the closest is approximately 22. There's supporting guidance within the Residential Design Guide SPG. As mentioned, there's minimal external alterations to the existing building, which mainly include changes to the fenestration. The curtilage to the rear of the site, that'll incorporate a 2-meter high boundary fence and also native landscaping features, which will help to separate this site from adjacent residential properties also. There's no change to the drainage provision. Existing mains connection is being retained. Given the conversion of the building, ecology have been consulted. They've raised no objection to the proposal. External lighting has been included, biodiversity enhancements and a green infrastructure. These measures are being conditioned with the proposal. Based on the application and through thorough consultation and the information provided, officers recommends a recommendation of conditional consent subject to conditions. Given its residential area, officers are proposing a working hours condition to also be included, just to prevent any early, late night working on the property. As mentioned, there'll be the standard ecology conditions to ensure compliance with the details provided in respect of lighting, biodiversity enhancements, landscaping, drainage condition. Therefore, officers are supportive of the proposal put forward. I'll pass back to the chair now. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Right, as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of speakers, so I'm dechrau, hopefully ofyn cynghorydd Hugh dod fyny. Councillor Hugh, you'll have 5 minutes in which to address the committee, and the time is yours when you're ready.
Diolch, Cadeirydd, members. I speak on behalf of local residents who object to this application as it could have a significant and negative impact on the character and distinctiveness of the area. The building sits at the heart of a family-oriented residential area. The former St John's Ambulance Hall acted as a focal point for local children and volunteer adults. There are legitimate material reasons, however, for refusing this application, which I and the other speakers will outline. Derwen Road is a street of families located close to the centre of Ystrad. In principle, the residents are not against the conversion of the old St John's Hall into a family home because it would be in keeping with the character of the area. 3 flats in such a confined space, however, raises many concerns, and residents deem the application in its current form to be inappropriate and unnecessary. It is sad to note that the applicant did not engage or consult with the neighbouring families or the wider community. It's such a shame. The applicant mentions the shortage of single occupancy housing in Ystrad, without acknowledging current significant developments in the Pen-y-Bin area of Ystrad by Powys County Council. The design of the planned alteration is of material concern. Powys County Council's DM13 policy, which sits within the LDP, requires development proposal to demonstrate high-quality design that enhances the surrounding area. This design does not do this. There is a change of use, and yes, there is external cosmetic improvement, but the fundamental issue is this application is designed to include multiple flats which do not complement or reflect the character of the surrounding houses. The proposal could arguably be classified as a house in multiple occupation, for which the landlord would need to adhere to strict regulation around specific fire safety and amenity standards. It would be similar to student accommodation. The applicant submitted block plans show 3 flats with a capacity of 7 people. The first bedroom studio is planned to be 39 square metres in area. The second, 56 square metres, and the third, 72 square metres. These are incredibly small flats and unheard of in Ystrad. I stand to be corrected if I have misread the plans. The plans show no allowance for emergency access or egress. There are no emergency exits. Access to external amenities is not possible for those who are less able because they are all accessed by stairs. How is it proposed that less able individuals exit the building in an emergency? Alternatively, is it a fact that less able-bodied individuals will be discouraged from renting the flats, which is very non-inclusive? The Welsh Housing Quality Standards adhered to by Powys set high standards of accessibility, internal noise suppression and heat insulation. Are these demonstrated by this application? Is there any mention of renewable and low carbon energy? The proposal does not show the installation of a standalone renewable or low carbon energy development. Shouldn't we be asking for this in a new development? These matters do have an impact on this application and highlights the restrictive and non-inclusive nature of the application. On page 18 of your report, the Environmental Protection Officer states, after reviewing the information on the portal, the development will have no impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties. How do they know? It seems they haven't been there.
1 minute left.
What about commenting on the loss of privacy due to onlooking at neighbouring backyards? Parking issues. A new fence is proposed, but will it be sufficient to hide the overlooking view into neighbours' backyards and gardens? The St John's Hall sits on an elevated platform compared to its neighbours in Burnowell Road. How could this officer make a proper judgment? There has been no engagement or consultation with any neighbours to support this. There are issues with lighting. Lighting is considered appropriate and designed to minimise potential impact on nocturnal life. Fair enough. But what about residents who live in a measured 22 metres away? Will they suffer from floodlit back doors and gardens? The drainage will be referred to by another speaker. Car parking issues. This has been downplayed in the report, but more will be said later. It is not exclusive parking to the St John's Hall. In conclusion, the residents believe this has been a huge missed opportunity. Occupiers will live in a cramped environment with little amenity. The development will not enhance the character of the local area, and the developer doesn't seem to have understood the essence of a Welsh community and made no effort to understand, engage or consult with the neighbours. The change of use will have an impact on the character and the amenity of the area. On behalf of the residents, I ask you to refuse this application.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Councillor Hugh. Thank you very much. We'll wait for you to retake your seats and ask Stephanie Connick, please, if you are ready and unmuted. No, Nick, there you go. Nicola is unmuted as well. Stephanie, can I remind you, you also have 5 minutes and your time starts when you're ready.
Good morning all. I'm a resident in Durban Road for 30 years and I oppose against this because, you know, it's a family residential area. My concern is parking and highways. The condition of our roads at present aren't brilliant, and I understand, you know, with the shortage of money with the councils, repairs are limited, and I'm concerned that more activity that will cause more damage. Parking at Edwin Road is very limited for all areas, and I'm concerned that there could be 7 people extra, 7 cars, and it could be even more cars if they couples, which I don't feel they're aimed at. They're aimed at more single people. So I'm concerned that where will existing people and new people going to park in the area, which is an issue, and an issue with some residents with being of age. They have mobility issues which need to park sort of by their houses. Also, the impact on the neighbour, you know, the area, it's a residential area with families that I have brought my children up for 30 years. And the impact it's going to have on the character of the street. One, it could have impact on reducing our house property pricing, because who would want to buy a house opposite a block of single flats, you know? And we don't know what the noise, the type of resident is aimed at, you know, so it's going to have an impact on the character of our street. And I'm proud of living in Ystrad-on-Lys, and I'm proud of being a part of the community. And I don't feel the developer has come and looked at our community. It's more of a profit of how much they can get from the existing building. I don't have a problem with redevelopment of the property to a family home to upkeep the current location. I would welcome that. It's just the nature of the business that they're intending for. And I also, you know, drainage can be a problem, especially with climate change and how wet it's getting a lot wetter in Wales. You know, the water from the drainage, can the drainage cope with it? With an extra 7 flats? And also the disruption when the work starts. My concern is because it's a very tight road, you know, when there's parking out the front, there's an issue with people trying to get past. How would this have an impact? You know, if there was an emergency and there's building, can vehicles come past safely? So I do have a lot of concerns, and I would like it to be objected. Obviously, you know, a family home, I welcome that, but currently 3 flats, I feel strongly against it. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you so much all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you for your time. Our next speaker, please, is Nicola Griffiths. Nicola, you also have 5 minutes, and I see you're unmuted, so the time's yours when you're ready.
Bore da, good morning. I live in 20 Browell Road, which is on the right-hand side. So our fence is actually adjacent to the current St. John's building. And likewise, I would like it noted, I totally agree the building is in a state of disrepair and would benefit from development. However, 3 residential flats with potentially 6 to 8, because I believe they are 2 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom. So that could be 6 to 8 people with 8 vehicles. Stephanie has discussed parking in quite length, but the amount of people in that area, in that sort of square footage, which has been a business. I have lived there for 20 years. It's a very quiet location. As Stephanie has said, the road is quite narrow, so there's issues around that. However, I do have a young daughter, and the elevation of the building, you're talking of windows, and it would overlook my garden. So I have great concerns about that. And like Councillor Williams and Stephanie has discussed, the character of the area, Browell Road and Derwen Road, are sought after, very popular areas of Ystrad-on-Lys that are well respected, with quite range of chronological ages of families and elderly. And it does concern me greatly that it's single occupancy or single 1-bedroom flats. You know, these aren't going to be families. If it was a family home or a conversion for a family, I would not be objecting. But my huge concern is that the shared drainage, you say there's sufficient drainage, I do oppose greatly to that, as the manhole is actually on my property, on my path. Whereas at the moment it's been a business use, you know, rarely used. For that to become 6 to 8 residents, or the grey water, the sewerage, I have emailed Welsh Water, because that is a huge concern. I am not taking the responsibility for 6 to 8 residences' waste, grey water coming onto my property. That really needs, because at the moment it's shared drainage, and that really does need to be considered. Like I previously said, the building is in a bad state and would benefit from redevelopment. We've had no input or discussion, and I speak on behalf of my neighbours who live in 22 Browell Road, who that private lane that you said to the left-hand side of the property, you know, this is a residential area, and I think myself and 22 Browell Road will be most significantly impacted because our boundary is shared with this property. And I object, and I would like these to be strongly considered. And I think, you know, people need to come and see it of how close my property is, like I said, adjacent to St John's, and it is just not upkeeping with Bramwell Road and Derwen Road. And I think that's all I have to say. So thank you for listening to my objections.
Thank you, Nicola Griffiths. Thank you very much for your time. As previously mentioned, unfortunately, at the last minute, the agent, Mr. Hugh Griffiths, can't be here, but he has prepared a statement that Rachel now will kindly read out.
This is a statement prepared by Mr. Hugh Griffiths, Managing Director of Hugh Griffiths Architects Limited, based in Swansea. A response to objections concerning parking, privacy, tenancy and safety concerns. Dear Chair, Councillors and members of the Planning Committee, application reference 25/0980/full, former St John's Ambulance Offices, Derwen Road, Astragunlies, change of use to offices to provide 3 residential flats. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this statement in support of the change of use application to convert the former St John's offices into 3 residential flats. I wish to directly address some of the concerns raised by local residents and objectors to the application. Parking. We appreciate that parking is a common concern for residents. However, it's worth highlighting that this change of use from offices to residential will, in reality, reduce the overall parking demand associated with this building. The existing building has on-street parking for 4 vehicles on Derwen Road, which was occupied by the previous owners. If the building was used for commercial purposes and was filled to capacity, one could easily imagine how this could cause significant increased weekday traffic from staff, deliveries and visitors, etc. By contrast, the number of vehicles associated with 3 residential flats will be lower than previous highway loading, with a lower intensity of comings and goings throughout the day. The site is closely linked to the town centre, so it is well served by public transport and close to local amenities, which helps reduce reliance on private vehicles. Importantly, the Highway Authority have reviewed the scheme and raised no objections. The proposed use reduces the parking demand and lowers the potential intensity of vehicular movements that could be associated with its current use. Privacy. We've also been made aware of concerns about overlooking or loss of privacy, which are natural concerns. The proposed separation distances between the buildings are compliant with local policy guidance notes. There are no external alterations that would introduce new overlooking opportunities or impact the privacy of existing neighbouring properties. Therefore, we would wish to reassure residents and the committee there is no adverse impact on the privacy enjoyed by nearby homes or gardens. Concerns about future tenants. Regarding concerns raised about future tenure and type of tenants that would be occupying the flats, the proposal is for high quality, policy compliant, open market homes that meet identified housing needs in the area. Community safety. We consider that a vacant, dilapidated building is far more likely to attract undesirable behaviour than a preferred residential use. Creating homes will increase the natural surveillance of the surrounding neighbourhood, which plays an important role in improving community safety. In summary, this proposal is a viable, policy-compliant change of use application that offers the opportunity to bring the currently vacant and neglected building back into beneficial use, delivering much-needed homes to the community whilst improving the condition and visual appearance of the building. We appreciate the concerns that such applications can cause, and we've worked alongside your officers to address these concerns constructively. We hope the committee will support the officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. Yours sincerely, Hugh Griffiths, Managing Director of Hugh Griffiths Architects Limited.
Thank you, Rachel. I believe that does conclude the speakers and statements that we have this morning in relation to this application. Before I move on to members, Councillor Carl, I understand that you did join us halfway through, so will not be able to vote or take part in this discussion application. That's right, Carol. Thank you. Good. Members, over to you, please. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please, followed by Councillor Edwin.
Thank you, Chair. Can we just clarify the sizes of the three flats and the gross internal area of the total building? Because I think Councillor Hughes said it was something like 39, 56 and 70, which seemed to be very small. And you could, the plan that's on site at the moment is very small, so we can, I've got an enlarged version of that so we can actually see the plans. And the other one, Richard, is could you flick back after to the site where you show the car parking? Because to me, the cars were parked the wrong way round. You know, to me, they're not using the parking bay appropriately. And I was just wondering, could a condition be placed on that for to ensure that the cars park parallel to the road rather than narrowing the actual road?
Richard, are you happy to take answer Councillor Gareth about those sizes, please?
I don't have the specific measurements of the size of the flats, but it is for 3. I don't dispute what the councillor raised in respect of the sizes. Yeah, there's 3 flats proposed as part of this.
Yeah, it's quite small. I've zoomed in.
Yes. So flat 1 is 39 square meters. Flat 2 is 56. And flat 3 is 72 square meters.
Okay, but so quite small. And I assume that there's nothing we can do to ensure that the cars park parallel to the building.
Yeah, the site. This is the information put forward. Like with dwellings, flats, residential developments, we do seek a range and mix of housing flat types for proposals. It is an existing building, therefore constraints with existing built form. It has been designed in a way to provide different types range of flats for the settlement and wider area of Ostragonlais and beyond. The flats do provide the appropriate like residential elements to them, therefore providing a mix to proposed prospective buyers of them. In respect to the parking, Google imagery does demonstrate parking at the site, and there is vehicles parked appropriately within the allocated parking area but it is existing parking provision for the B1 use, which has been in operation for many years prior. The residential use is utilising existing means of parking at the site, as mentioned. The provision previously was for 4. The proposal is for 4 also, so there's no material change in relation to the parking. As standard with highways, with residential developments, we often seek 1 parking space per bedroom up to a maximum of 3 per dwellings. This element provides 4, with the existing also being 4.2, so there's no real material change within that provision. So the existing access parking provision is deemed to be acceptable.
Happy, Councillor Gareth. Thank you very much. Councillor Edwin.
Diolch Cadeirydd. I spent quite a bit of time actually looking at these plans last night, and been involved with some alterations on property not far from where I live at the moment. And it genuinely concerns me the amount of people that are going to be living in a restricted space, all really under one roof, to put it bluntly. But, you know, we're looking at 6, maybe 7 people living there. And then, of course, what we've got, which is paramount in any planning these days, is the amount of cars that will be involved there. Because what it used to be years ago, with 1 house, 1 car, these days it could be 2 or 3 cars per household. And I think, no, well, that area there, looking at the description around it, etc., I believe that it's going to be very difficult to find sufficient place to park cars, and that's not allowing for visitors. Genuinely, I'm quite surprised really that that size building wouldn't have been put into one single residential home rather than trying to put 3 families under one roof there. It's, without going into further detail, Chair, I can't see myself supporting this application because of the restrictive part of it. You were looking at 6, 7 people and could be 7, 8 cars. And I can see major problems arising there. So myself, I will leave it there, Chair. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Edwin. I will come back to that later. I'll hear what Councillor Angela has to say, then I'll ask you to come back and show with the maps where the parking is within the area of the development and off street as well. But for now, if you'll allow me, Councillor Edwin, I'd like to ask Councillor Angela for her comments, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to go back to the size of the dwellings themselves, because they are very small. They are what they are. But how does that compare? So there must be guidelines. So when somebody's building a housing estate, they've got to build some properties for local needs. I understand there's a floor span space. So are there any rules anywhere within planning that say what the minimum size of a property should be?
Yeah, we're just checking the SPG. The affordable housing guidance does specify upper limits of residential. So 115 square meters is the max. And then there is cascade kind of smaller sizes to suit a range type within that. So we're just going to clarify those figures.
Because like others, I can see the size of the property would lend itself nicely to a family home or perhaps to 2 flats. And it does make you feel that the squeezing in as much as possible. But I guess within planning with a private development, there's nothing, there are no rules that the authority can force on a private developer.
Well, yeah, the proposal is for private open market housing. Like, I'm sure they would have done their market research to ensure that what they're proposing would be a sellable product at the end of it.
But you know that?
When I'm not,
You're
I'm saying that the
sure.
applicant has put forward an application based on market demand. So I would ensure, I would trust that they've done their research in that element to ensure what they build.
There's no indication of that within the pack that we have, is there?
That's not necessarily a material planning consideration. So if I just go through the types. So within the affordable housing SPG, so for a 7-person 4-bed house, that would be approximately 114 square meters. So a 2-person 1-bed flat, a lower element would be approximately 46 square meters. There is certain requirements in affordable housing that they do meet certain size requirements specified by affordable housing. But as this is a open market development, it doesn't need to accord with those size requirements. So what the agent has put forward for us is to be considered. And the layout does show all the 3 units accommodated within that existing building.
So based on those figures then, actually these flats do fit within that sizes. So if it were for 7 people, actually the 3 flats combined is more than 114 and the 2-bedroom one is more. So, okay, so that does meet that, although it does look small for us. In terms of the demand for the local area, then what evidence is there? What demand through Powis's housing register? What demand is there?
Well, it is a private, it's an open market dwelling, so the housing register would normally look to record people like affordable housing or in need of housing. This is open market proposal. Therefore, there isn't necessarily the evidence base that we would have in respect of it. It's a private matter that they've come in with to provide open market housing. If it was affordable, we would be seeking that evidence to demonstrate that they are contributing to the need of affordable housing. But as it's open market, there is no requirement for that. The policy generally for housing does seek to provide a suitable range of housing throughout Powys. So that's why we kind of don't want just larger houses built. They've got to provide a range, single people up to families, different size families, couples. The policy does seek to provide a suitable range for that. And this application, while I appreciate it's in a residential area from the comments, for mainly family homes, but I'm sure there would be a need for other types of accommodation within the Ystrad town. But again, it is a private application, like open market dwelling, put forward by the agent. So we wouldn't necessarily.
When you say that, does that mean that is your understanding that these are being built to sell or built to rent privately?
It's up to the applicant as to how they wish to operate. They're private, that we can't exert any control as to them. If they're affordable, we would put certain mechanisms on them to ensure that they are affordable and they're retained as affordable and occupied as such. As you know, with many developments, if it's open market dwelling, they're sold on the open market, and I can't really consider that element of it.
Okay, and I did have another question. Yeah, so looking at page 20 of the report, there are the objections there from the residents. Are you convinced that you have met and responded to all of those? So, for example, the parking we've talked a lot about, and I'm not convinced we have resolved that issue, but the loss of privacy then within the building, this meets the planning regulation for distance between properties, etc. Yeah, Gemma's nodding there. So there is no rule against building another property. So I think we've heard before, you don't own your view, etc., etc. This meets all the planning regulation and requirements for distance from the neighbouring property, noise nuisance, etc.
It is an existing building within a residential area. The conversion, as seen on the plans, it's not extending or increasing the height or anything like that of the building. It is upgrading the fenestration and any additional elements. They're not going to cause any adverse impact on amenity on adjacent residential properties. The existing building is offset appropriately from other existing residential properties. It is single story. It's noted that the properties across Derwent Road, the existing ones, they are situated higher elevation than this property, so this isn't going to cause any overlooking or overshadowing on any of those properties by its change of use to a residential. It's not altering the roof or anything like that. The properties to the rear, it's single story, this one. There'll be a 2 meter high boundary treatment provided in there, so it is mitigating any potential that could arise, but it is existing building and existing built environment, so it is going to be limited.
Like continue, Chair, is that all right? So my other question, one of the objectors raised alarms for me was the issue of drainage and the grey water and sewerage seeping through into their property. So I didn't really see anything within the report about that.
The sewerage undertaker have been consulted on proposed means of foul drainage. As mentioned, it's an existing mains connection, and the proposal seeks to continue that arrangement. The sewage undertaker has proposed a condition in regards to no surface water from the roof or anything like that to go into the local drain. The asset of the mains is under the control of the statutory undertaker. So it's an existing. They're not proposing to change the mains at all. So the existing arrangements still stand.
So there's no concern that we should have about more people using that drainage system potentially.
They have capacity for it, and this is why we consult the sewage undertaker on such applications to ensure that they can accommodate the change of use and any impact that would have on this.
My final one, because much reference was made to this area being a family residential area, but from my little knowledge of when housing estates are built, is it normal practice now that any housing estate would be mixed dwelling, or are there housing estates built that are specifically for families or older people or single people?
I think generally with a good site design, you try to incorporate a range of housing types within them. So larger schemes generally that I've dealt with, you do try to provide a mix of that housing type within it. Like some, I don't know, you have 2-story dwellings, like 4-bed, you have bungalows on there, you have a mix of like single occupancy one. I know one I took to committee a couple of years ago in Landry and Dodwells is like a mix of housing types on there, just to provide a range to all the occupants or potential.
So that's not abnormal in that sense.
No, it's within policy. Like we've got to provide housing for a range of people to suit their needs.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Angela. Members, maybe it's worth noting on page 23 in the top, the paragraph there, where it states that as a Studcan Lice is located in southwest Powys, it has a 0% contribution of affordable housing for new development. So that is there clearly for your reading. Can I ask, please, Richard, Gemma, would you just go back and address some of the concerns of the committee in relation to the parking, and just show again through the pictures exactly where the 4 parking spaces are? And then I'll come to you, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, we're going to try and attempt to share.
Thank you.
I'm just showing what's on Google Imagery along Derwent Road. So you got the St John's office building here, and then you've got the existing adopted highway and the parking provision here, which they're seeking to utilise. So this is existing. And
so those 4 plots there are purely allocated to the no. So I think that's the concern the members are raising. So it's not purely allocated, and if the building has been unoccupied for a number of years,
the use of the building is still its use. So the B1 would generate, I think highways have said 4.2 parking space requirement. Given the proposal before us for the change of use, that would also require 4 parking spaces. So the existing, as the site currently is, would require 4.2. Therefore, a change of use as before us would also require 4. So there's no increase or reduction in parking. So there's no material change to the parking through the change of use of this application. If they would put more units in there, it may require a higher level of parking. That's where there may be an issue to raise, but it's balanced it out basically.
I understand what you're saying, but I think what members are alluding to is that when you normally see a new residential development being made, they have to allocate specific parking per house. And this, as I understand, unless I'm missing something, I'm looking for, isn't specific to that building.
But
So-
the use is existing and the use isn't
Is
being taken
already
away.
from highways then.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the B1 use could operate today if this app, if they wished.
With you.
So
Okay.
it's not changing the current situation in respect to the parking. I know it hasn't been used previously, but it could be used today.
From previous. Okay. Councillor Gareth.
So I've got another point that might be different. So am I right in understanding that part?
There.
Microphone, please, Gareth.
Do apologise. So I've got another point to make after this point, but am I right in my understanding that parking is not in the ownership of the applicant? That is available for anybody to park on. So there's no designated parking spaces with the application. Okay, fine. My point I was going to ask, and this is from my own understanding, if this property was now used as a single residence, what planning process would the owner have to go through to convert it into 3 separate flats? Or is there a planning application process for that? Or could they just convert into 3 flats? It's an hypothetical.
If they had one dwelling, for example, if they were then to go to 3, it'd need further planning permission. Yeah, so it would have to come before us. Yeah, I just want to, if it's possible, I just come in quickly there. Durham Road. So yes, where the parking is, it's adopted county highway, so it's Durham Road. So the parking is on street. Now, there's nothing to say that we can't support on-street parking. And as Richard's shown here, there is provision available, and further down the road, there's also further provision. Now, we've got a clear statement here from highway officers that said we've got an existing use, so we're not looking at a baseline of nothing. Someone could come and occupy that building tomorrow, shall we say, for a B1, and there'd be a generating traffic movements and parking arrangements. Now, what we're saying is that this use, it wouldn't increase that, it wouldn't exacerbate the existing scenario of what the building could be looked at. And that's what members you really need to consider today is we're not seeing to increase movements. It is what could be operated there tomorrow. So just to clarify that, thank you.
Thank you,
And
Gemma.
just
Any
follow- just
further
following-
comments?
Sorry, Chair, just following that, I assume there's nothing stopping cars parking on the opposite side of double yellow lines without being in a parking bay anyway. That's under highways.
It is an adopted highway, so it would be a highway matter if there's like obstructions or anything like that.
Members, I'm looking for some other hands or someone to take this forward, please. Councillor Gareth, is that, yeah? I mean,
Chair, I think I've heard all the concerns that we have, but personally, I can't see any reason under planning regulations why we should refuse this. So I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation to approve, conditionally approve when required.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth. Councillor Edwin, sorry.
Can you just clarify again, assuming this would have been put into 3 flats, the decision hasn't been made as yet whether they're going to be rented out or sold?
That would be a private matter. They're open market dwellings, so it'd be entirely up to the.
Yeah, whichever he wants to go, yeah. I'm still concerned, and even looking at it now, actually, is the parking side of it. And it's basically a single track road looking at it, and should there be emergency vehicles, they would have great difficulty in passing there if somebody is not parked well up and necessary going onto the pavement. And on that grounds, Chair, I've got to reiterate the fact I cannot support this.
Thank you, Councillor Edwin. You made your points clear. Councillor Pugh, I think your hand's gone down, has it? So Councillor Elwyn, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Just to say, basically, I've listened to the concerns and things, but in reality, as has been noted, from a planning perspective, and that's what we have to focus on today, I can't see any planning reasons in reality to able to refuse this, which would stand up to an appeal, and therefore I second the movement as suggested by Councillor Gareth.
Diolch, Cynghorydd Vaughan, thank you very much. Are there any other hands? Anybody else wishing to contribute? If not, I can't see any. Carol, would you be so kind as to put the vote into the chat? Are you able to stop sharing? Thank you. There you go, members. 4.2 is now in your chat box at 11:01. That's right.
Chair, my voting isn't working, but I'm happy to do it verbally, which would be 4.
Thank you, Councillor Ed.
Chair, same goes for me as Councillor Gareth Pugh it is, but when you're ready, I'll vote verbally.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. How are we looking, Carol?
Chair, I've got 8 that have voted on the system. So Councillor Ed, you were
4.
4, thank you. And then Councillor Gareth Pugh?
4.
4, okay. So that's 10 members eligible to vote. So we've got 9 voted for the application and 1 against.
Thank you very much, Carol. Thank you, members. So, application for the change of use of offices to provide free residentials has been passed as per officer recommendation. Thank you to Richard. Thank you to members and to the speakers who gave up the time. Very grateful to you. Members, before we move on to the next application, I think Councillor Gareth, you have to leave now.
Yes, Chair.
So can I just, as you're all aware, we've agreed to go to monthly meetings, and this was agreed in a closed session previously. And just for note, this is for the minutes. I'd just like everyone to agree that's what was decided in there, so that Carol can duly record the decision that from now on we will be going to monthly meetings like that. So, if anyone's got any questions, please raise their hands. If not, we'll consider it noted for Carol. Yeah, Pam and Apis. Good. Thank you. I thought I'd do that when Gareth was still here. So good. Members, would you like a short comfort break before the next one? Are you happy to push on? Push on. Yeah, good. So Gareth, Councillor Hugh, we can welcome you back onto your usual seat, or you stay where you want. And we progress now to item 4.3, land at Trowscoed and at Orchard Croft, Llandrynio, Powys. And I understand that the officer in charge of this is Lorraine Jenkins. So when we're all happy, Lorraine, floor's yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Yes, this application is being heard in front of committee because the applicant is Powys County Council and it's a major application. The community council area is Llandrynio and Ardlean community, and the original application was is a split site. I'll show you the site here. The northern parcel of land is called Orchard Croft, and the southern one is Trouse Coed. Now, Orchard Croft had 24 open market dwellings, and Trouse Coed had 24 affordable dwellings, and consent was given to that. So this is the village of Llandrynio, showing the wider area. This is a more close-up of the site, and you can see that the visibility displays are included on this application. And there is a well, it's not very easy to read, I'm afraid, but that's the location plan of the two sites. And this is the constraints map. So you can see this thick black line here is the development limits of Llandrynio, and this element of the site was within the development limits, and this was without, which explains the affordable dwellings being there and the open market dwellings being there. Oh, it did have affordable. Beg your pardon, it did. Yeah. Yeah, so beg your pardon, the Orchard Croft section did have affordable dwellings because that would have been required as per the local plan contribution, but the Trouse Coed element was completely affordable. So apologies for that. So this application has come in front of committee because in the interim period between it being consented and them actually wanting to start building, the Welsh design quality requirements for affordable housing have improved and have changed, and therefore this application reflects the need to upgrade the houses slightly and make some relatively modest changes, but they would still have required planning permission because they are obviously changes. For the majority, it's just providing a little more storage area within the dwellings to upgrade them, but also the wheelchair accessible, which I believe is this one, is going from a 3-bed to a 4-bed dwelling for a specific family which has a disabled occupant. So hence the application has come through. So the application is seeking to change the 2 conditions. The first is condition 2, which lists the plans. This has now got different plans, obviously. So they're seeking to change the plan list. And they've also wanted to change condition 32, which originally said prior to commencement of development to have an affordable housing scheme agreed. Well, that scheme has now come in with this application and has been agreed by our affordable housing officer. So that will now be a compliance condition. This is the site from this fence here shows the boundary to the field. I'm just showing the site within the village. That's heading towards it's going east to that direction. This is the photo of the site. The actual boundary doesn't go as far as the hedge line. It actually cuts across, being level with the sort of existing building line within the village. Okay, so we've just showing here the plans. Say the changes are minimal, but just to go through, these are proposed flat plots. And more of the flats, just a slightly different design. We've got house plots 21 to 24, slight amended design, but sort of negligible. The wheelchair accessible bungalow is slightly larger so that it's got that additional bedroom. more house plots, plots 1 to 4. The bungalow plots 13 to 16. So there is again a range of dwelling types on this site. And the last plan is the proposed bin store for the occupants. And in slightly changing the layout of the dwellings, we've got a revised planting plan just to ensure that the planting scheme is safeguarded. The recommendation is for approval. So thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you very much for that detailed report. First to indicate, Councillor Alwyn.
Diolch Cadeirydd, and thank you, Officer. Well, in reality, these changes are fairly minor in the greater scheme of things. They are an enhancement in reality. Oh, and excuse the dog. And I would therefore be happy to recommend approval as recommended. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Thank you, Councillor Alwyn. Councillor Gareth Pugh, please. Councillor Gareth, you are muted.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I remember this one coming through a few years ago. So I'll go with Councillor Elwyn, and I'll second him, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. Anyone else wishing to comment? Councillor Edwin, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Just a comment, actually. We see so many of these designs in front of us in planning applications. I do wish that some would vary the designs of the houses, to be perfectly frank with you. They look just like Legoland look-alike, some of these. But the bin store, I think, is a marvellous idea. There was a question, actually, because looking at the ground, it was level. There's no issues regarding flooding there. I don't know the areas, I'm just...
There is an element of flood zone. I should have put that, but it's minor, and NRW have come back and said that it will be resolved within the SUDS arrangement, so that they didn't have any concerns.
Going by that, I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Edwin. Anybody else wishing to speak prior to me asking Carol? Can't see anyone. Carol, would you be so kind, please? Oh, there you go. 4.3. Anyone struggling again, Councillor?
Sure, Councillor Gareth here. Yeah, mine's asking for updates, but I don't go fiddling with it now. I'll probably get kicked out of the meeting. So when you're ready, I'll vote verbally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, we've had 8 people voting online. So if I come to Councillor Ed Jones.
4.
Pugh. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
4.
Councillor Edwin Roderick.
4.
Fine, thank you. So everybody's voted. So there are 8 votes, 11 votes for the application, no one against and no one abstained.
Thank you, Carol. So 4.3 has been approved as per officer recommendation. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, members, again for your time. All right, I understand that concludes all planning applications for consideration this morning. So item number 5 is to receive the delegated list. Hopefully, they weren't sent out to you this time, but hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read them online. Hold on, let me get my screen back up. Any comments, any observations? No. Happy just to receive, Carol. Thank you very much. And finally, this morning, the appeals decisions. We have a couple to be taken through. So, Gemma, if you'd be willing, please.
Good morning, members. So there are 3 appeal decisions before us at this committee. So the first was for Reed Bloud Farm. Unfortunately, this appeal was allowed. The position of the council was we had 3 reasons or 3 grounds for refusal. They related to noise, highways, and that was actually an objection from the Welsh Government Trunk Road, and phosphates were the 3 reasons the council put before the appeal or for the application. It's for a site just outside of Llandrindod along Dissef, and it's to go to a electric bike experience centre, I think is the word, and they're using. Now, we, in terms of noise, didn't have any objection to the electric use of the site, but the use was to remain or retain some element of petrol bikes, which obviously do generate noise, and the site is proposed to be used 7 days a week. So that was the basis of the concerns raised by the council, and that was obviously supported from our environmental health or protection colleagues. It did go to inquiry early this year, and the inspector has ruled against us on all 3 grounds. There's obviously came as obviously consideration for us, and I am doing a review internally just to discuss perhaps lessons to learn or where perhaps we could have strengthened our case, etc. So there is an internal review going on for that case to see where the inspector made that decision. Additionally, the appellants did put forward an application for costs, and that was also awarded as well. Now, unfortunately, I can't give details to this day of what that entails for the council, but there was awards of cost against the council for that case as well. So yes, definitely an ongoing review for that, but that was the basis of the council's position, should we say, for that case.
Did you say the Welsh Trunk Road? So a part of that was sort of objected to, wasn't a Powys County Council sort of view as such?
No. From our own highways, we had no objection, but obviously there is a connection to the Trunk Road, and Welsh Government Highways did object.
Objected?
They did, yeah. Unfortunately, they didn't, well, they pulled out of the inquiry very last minute, so we didn't have a representative at that inquiry to support that reason for refusal. But yes, it was a ground for a refusal by the Welsh Government Trunk Road rather than Powys County Council.
Sorry, the refusal. So do they share the costs? Or?
No, be unfortunately on the council, that decision, that cost will be, yes. But we didn't actually, the cost didn't relate to the highway side. There were specific grounds for the costs, and it didn't relate to the Welsh Government pulling out, shall we say, of the inquiry or against that reason for refusal. So we haven't got costs specifically against that reasoning.
Gemma, you happy? I've got 2 hands up. Are you happy?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see.
Councillor Elwyn, please, and then Councillor Carl.
Well, no, what I was going to ask was, but you subsequently answered it. If the issue was Trunk Road agency, surely there was a responsibility on them to attend. If that was the basis of our refusal initially, but if there were wider reasons, fair enough. But it looks bad when you have one department of government telling us one thing and then the other department of government deciding contrary and us being piggy in the middles.
Totally. I think the committee here for the Chamber share that view, Councillor Vaughan, and Gemma, you said at the beginning you were going to be investigating this thing a little bit further and see what happens. Councillor Carl, please.
Thank you, Chair. Gemma, you mentioned that you can't tell us the costs. Is that because all the costs haven't come in yet, or is it confidential? What?
No, we haven't received the other side's proposal, should we say, of costs. So that hasn't come before us at the moment.
Okay. Could I make a recommendation you bring it next time to committee so we can be updated on the cost, please? Is that okay, Chair?
I'm happy to if it's available. We don't know the timescale, Councillor Callum, when
Yeah.
this information will be
Whenever it's available, Chair. Thanks.
opportunity, we can bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
No. So I don't think there's any other questions for Read Loud. On better news, though, we did have then two other appeals determined as well. So the first was for a property called Dairy House, which was the appeal was dismissed. Now, this was proposing to remove conditions from a previous consent, and specifically they were looking to remove the holiday restriction to that property for it to become an open market dwelling. Now, members, obviously you'll be aware that we do have a policy TD2, which in principle could support future uses of holiday properties, but they have to show evidence that it's no longer a viable business. And that appeal concluded that they hadn't done sufficient evidence or marketing, etc., to show that that was no longer a viable business within that location. So that was dismissed on those grounds and went with officer's recommendation. And then the third appeal we have before us is...
Sorry, Gemma, hand up.
Sorry.
Councillor Angela, please.
So I'm curious on that one because I'm aware of some people who have holiday lets in my ward and they're struggling to make the new 186 days, is it, that they have to be able to let their property for it to be a viable business. So on what would be the evidence that you would require for them to say, okay, this isn't viable as a business, we can't afford to pay the double second house council tax, therefore we'll apply for it to be a permanent dwelling?
It could include a range of things, but yes, financial accounts to show perhaps they aren't able to let it to that level and therefore what their accounts look like. We can review that. Alternative, they could look to market it, and perhaps if there's no one that wants to purchase that holiday let, to take it on as a business. So there is a number of things that they could do to evidence us. I think the first, probably number one, would be financial evidence showing that they're unable to let it to the amount which would be viable as a business to run.
And secondary to that, given that the council recognises there's a shortage of housing across the county, wouldn't it be beneficial to make it easier for current holiday lets to be changed?
We have to look at the LDP and the wider purpose of it. Now,
Location.
Yes, tourism development is very much, they're only allowed in open countryside settings because it is obviously meeting a tourism need and economic development. Now, obviously with housing, we very much look at it being in sustainable locations, access to services, etc. So that's why there is a policy which potentially could allow it, but we need that extra level of detail. So people aren't then just turning in all these holiday lets into open market dwellings in the rural countryside.
Location. Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
If I may, just in our local town council meeting the other night, application for some more pods came, which is about the third consecutive month, and it was brought up exactly what we're talking about, the cumulative impact of them all, and how are they going to sustain when they're not meeting the 182, and what is the long-term intention of these applicants. So that was something that was discussed at Llanfair. So thank you. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Andrew.
So then the third and final appeal before us was an appeal against an enforcement notice served by the council. This was for a residential use which had been set up in an area of woodland just north of Rhayader, along the Trunk Road, isn't it? Or County Highway, shall we say, Trunk Road. If you ever travel that road, you may see it yourself as you pass. Now, again, that was dismissed. It went with our recommendation that they should cease the residential use of that land and return it to its former condition. And they have now 12 months to comply with that notice. So yes, another appeal against enforcement. I think that's all then from myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. I take it that's a legacy hand, Councillor Angela. Yeah, no problem. I don't see any further hands up. So I believe our next meeting, Carol, is on the 23rd of October. There will be the quarterly reports presented then as well. So members at home and in the chamber and all officers and speakers, can I thank you for your attendance this morning? Councillor Carl, is that a new hand?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Can I give my apologies for that meeting, please? I won't be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carl. Carol's noted that. Members, thank you all again for your attendance and close the meeting 11:25. Diolch yn fawr iawn pawb.
Thank you, Pam.